Apple's Magic Keyboard is what I've always wanted out of an iPad keyboard, and more. But the more is actually what makes it controversial. After several months of using both the Magic Keyboard and the Smart Keyboard, I want to give my full comparison between these two great cases for your iPad. My Smart Keyboard has been a pretty trusty companion and accessory for my iPad for about 2 years now, a little less than 2 years, ever since it came out with the iPad Pro. And it's always been awesome. It's crazy slim, and that's the most attractive thing about it. Very portable, very streamlined, but it still gives you a keyboard that doesn't really compare to any other keyboard on the market for something that is this compact. It feels like a standard folio case, but the fact that it has a keyboard and 2 viewing angles is pretty awesome. No batteries, no charging, nothing. Just snaps on automatically. But it was never perfect. So people have different opinions about the fabric keys on the Smart Keyboard. I personally never liked them. I found the travel to be a little bit mushy. I found the texture and the feedback to just not be solid or satisfying. I like a solid plastic key a lot better than the slightly mushy fabric keys on the Smart Keyboard. Everybody has different opinions, but that is my take on it. So the Magic Keyboard that has almost the MacBook style chiclet keyboard with good key travel, a solid plastic stroke, spacious and generally just very comfortable and professional for the most part. This keyboard really gave me everything that I was looking for in terms of the pure typing experience. The keys are much better. On top of that, there's also backlighting, which I don't use that often if I'm being honest, but sometimes when I'm working at night or whatever, it's nice to have a little bit of backlight to help the typing experience. There's also an indicator for the caps lock, and then that's about it in terms of the typing experience. Now, of course, it is still missing a function row, and I love function rows. They're so handy on a mobile device. I mean, if the whole point of the keyboard is to have your hands on the screen, slightly less on the iPad, it defeats the purpose to not have a function row, to still have to go onto the screen to adjust brightness and volume and other settings like that. So this means just like the Smart Keyboard, you're going to have to memorize some important shortcuts such as Command Tab, Command Space, Command H, Command W, and in any application you can hold down the Command button and it will give you all the available keyboard shortcuts. Not the end of the world, but pretty much every other keyboard for the iPad does have a function row. So for me, the physical typing experience went from like a 3 to 3.5-ish on the Smart Keyboard to a 4.5-ish on the Magic Keyboard. The keys, much improved. Backlighting is great. Those two features combine to make this a really excellent keyboard. So the Magic Keyboard also has the advantage when it comes to viewing angles. So with the Smart Keyboard, you have 2, and that's it. And they're not great, and the more that I use the Magic Keyboard, the more I realize that they're not great. They're not bad, but with this, you get a range of adjustments that you can really fine-tune. And on top of that, it's kind of hovering over the keyboard in a more natural viewing angle that I've found. It feels more like a desktop, like an iMac, like a Microsoft Studio computer. It's really nice, and it feels very elegant, and it feels very high-end, and so I really enjoy the viewing angles on this more expensive iPad case. I would say viewing angles go from a 3 to a 4. You still can't do every viewing angle, and you still are pretty limited in what you can do, but it's much better. Now, one of the last remaining things would be the shape and the folding options. Now, one of the beautiful things about the original Smart Keyboard Folio was that you can take it from its typing position to folding it completely flat and using it as a tablet, using it with your Apple Pencil, doing whatever you need to, or of course, you can just take it off very easily. Piece of cake, no issues whatsoever. And the whole thing remains just super portable. You can use it as a tablet, even with the case built on. Some people will still take it off because they don't like the feeling of the keys on the back. I never minded it, but you have that great flexibility, and it was awesome. You can completely pivot it around. The Magic Keyboard, on the other hand, is a lot more rigid in its structure. There's no folding it back or folding it flat. So you can have it completely closed, of course, but then outside of that, you're not moving it back at all. So this really makes it feel much more like a laptop experience that you can't fold back. And not a flexible laptop experience, but a rigid laptop experience. If you want to fold it flat, you're pretty much going to have to use the case upside down, which is just weird, or you're just gonna have to take the iPad off and you no longer have that protection, and now you have 2 pieces. This isn't a deal breaker, it's just something to keep in mind. for switching between tablet and laptop experience, the Smart Keyboard actually does a better job and includes some back protection if you want to put your iPad down on a surface flat. This guy is just a little more cumbersome to do that, and it's going to require a little more work. Of course, this case also does add a lot of thickness and weight. That's something to keep in mind. If I'm being honest, I haven't noticed the thickness. It just still feels like a pretty portable, fairly similar thickness, even though it more than doubles the iPad's thickness. However, the weight is a lot more noticeable, and I still, again, don't think this is a deal breaker, because it does give it a good heft and it keeps it stable on your lap or on a table. But if you are adding this into your book bag, paired with all the extra books and going a long distance, every pound makes a difference and accumulates. So that's something to keep in mind. It is heavier. I don't think it's a deal breaker, and I'm still going to use this despite that, but that's something to keep in mind. It's heavier, a lot heavier actually. But the most important thing, I think, is the trackpad. So you can use a mouse with the Smart Keyboard Folio, and it works pretty well. Actually, it works really well. Mouse support and cursor support is excellent on the iPad now, and you can pair a portable mouse like this tiny one I was recently sent, or something like Logitech's Pebble, which is really portable and has a great click sound to it. But I have actually found that the multi-touch gestures of scrolling and going back and forth is much better on a trackpad than it is a mouse with the iPad. So a trackpad, I think, is a better experience with the iPad, but carrying around one wherever you go is just not convenient and not super portable. So having one built into the case, I think, is actually amazing. It works very well, especially with a great keyboard attached to it. It really takes your iPad to the next level when it comes to things such as text editing and document editing, which I use all the time for my papers, as well as just browsing the web, scrolling, stuff like that. If you're just watching videos and just texting, it's not a big deal. But if you're very active and you try to get a lot of work done with the iPad, including document editing, Microsoft Suite, all this kind of stuff, it will be a real advantage to have the trackpad, and I think that's a big deal with this case. And lastly, the Magic Keyboard has an extra USB port on it, which means that you can charge your iPad from this USB port and keep this USB port free to charge other devices, to connect hubs, accessories, stuff like that. Not a huge deal, but it is convenient to have, especially if you're trying to get a lot of work done with this. So ultimately, my conclusion about this keyboard is, if you have the money to spend, this is expensive but worth it. And secondly, if you're trying to replace a laptop, having the built-in trackpad is going to be excellent, and it's going to be worth it. Otherwise, if you're looking for something just more portable, if you're not trying to replace a laptop, or if you don't want to spend the money or don't have the money, then this is still an excellent product and it works very well. I've been using it for about 2 years, and its increased flexibility is something that I do miss from time to time. Both of these options are really good and they have their pros and cons, but that's about it for this video. I'll leave links to both of these items in the description. Let me know what your preference is down in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.